Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks for checking out Too Much CGI. How are you doing, Scott?
Bill, doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Do you know who's playing guitar here?
Oh, I know it's Frank Zappa's band. I don't know who he has sitting in playing guitar. Is it actually Zappa himself?
That's Zappa himself.
Okay.
I've been really into just this last week. For some reason, I'm back on a good old-fashioned organic music kick. Organic music, in my mind, being like guitars.
Okay.
Because so much music now is made with, electronic stuff. And not that I mind new music, but, man, I had that forever soft spot for just guitar playing.
When you talk about electronic stuff, this is not exactly acoustic.
True, but I don't mean electric guitars. I mean more like using Pro Tools and synthesizer plugins and, any other thing to make music than a piece of wood with metal strings or brass, wind instruments or anything like that. Like a lot of that stuff is just gone. You just don't even hear it in music these days. A lot of the new stuff anyway.
I know what you're saying, but I think people out there that would hear this and hear you say organic music may challenge that. That's the only reason I bring that up.
Don't challenge me. I'm an old fucking, I'm an old, long-time guitar player with his opinions already made, and they're not going to change. The best music is guitar music.
This isn't exactly folk music we're talking about here.
No, I guess, all right, I get your point. But yeah, I've just been really back into, Frank Zappa is one of them guys I just adore. I mean, Frank Zappa has a career that is unlike anybody else's career, and it's one of those careers that when you talk to somebody and say, who are your favorite artists? They'll never say Frank Zappa. But then when you say, what do you think of Frank Zappa? They go, oh my God, he's a genius.
Dead of the vehicle from somewhere around the dead of the vehicle somewhere around the Indians first on the bell, carve up the hill.
But he's never anybody's favorite artist. But he's mine. He's my favorite artist. And he can do so much from the way that he plays guitar and thinks about his style as instant compositions, right? And he's also a composer. He's written some crazy, complicated pieces. So his guitar playing and the way that he thinks about music is just so different. And for a rock and roll guy, nobody's ever been like him. Nobody put out music like him. These days, there's people, if you look hard enough, you can find a lot of people that are inspired by Zappa now and are writing really complicated music. A lot of prog rock, kind of came from that Zappa camp. But he's still a unique thing, and I really respect somebody who has something that's so old but has not yet been, kind of like regurgitated. Everything else to me has. Jimi Hendrix has, the Beatles have, everything older has been sort of brought back and twisted around, but nobody really out there who's big sounds like Zappa. It's a very unique sound.
Yeah, a lot of truth to it. Once upon a time, I was going to go to school for music. Music theory is really something that I'm familiar with, and a lot, to your point, a lot of rock guys don't understand the language of music theory or composition or anything like that, and Zappa was definitely one of those guys. Hell, some guys can't even read music, and he was out there composing. He was really hard, really strict on musicians in his band. He expected them to put forth the work and have the talent that he had, and I think it shows in the end product.
Yeah, supposedly he was an asshole to work for, because if you didn't, if you fucked off, he was going to kill you.
Miles Davis was the same way.
James Brown, I've always heard, was the same way. He would find his band members if they fucked up apart. Like, he would find them, because he is the boss. He's paying them. So I get it.
There are great recording room sessions out there where Miles Davis is just losing his fucking mind on, like, his bass player or a saxophone player, and he is just... Yeah, it is a toxic work environment, to say the least, by today's standards, but it demanded perfection.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being perfect. So before I ask you, because I'm curious who your top guitar players are, everybody, per the laws of podcasting, I must say, please rate us on Spotify and Apple, or like and subscribe on YouTube. We're putting our shows up on YouTube now. Doing this will really help our show get a new audience and expand and be better. So we really appreciate your love and support there. Scotty, who are your favorite guitar players, sir?
Wow, put me on the spot. You named a few. Hendrix, of course. I didn't consider it till you mentioned the Beatles, but I think George Harrison's a solid acoustic guitar player. He was really talented. He went on to play sitar and things like that when they went to India and did their Eastern trips and things like that. So I'd list George Harrison. I probably like him more as a songwriter than a guitarist, though, but he's good. I think he'd have to make the list.
Yeah, you don't hear anybody talk about George Harrison that way, but he knew he was the lead guitar player of the Beatles, and he would sometimes, I've heard, he'd be like, yo, I'm the lead guitar player. Stop playing so much guitar. It's my job.
Yeah. Who I thought you were playing there at the intro before I heard the vocals come in, I thought that was Pink Floyd. I think David Gilmour is one of my top 5. And then, of course, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. And I don't know. I can't think of a 5, at least not off the top of my head. How about you?
Well, mine starts with Zappa. For some reason, the day I found him, and I found him being a guitar player, I came up with, I started playing guitar listening to like Poison, and Motley Crue. I remember CeCe DeVille of Poison, in my mind, was the greatest guitar player, bar none. Like, I thought he was the greatest. And then when I realized he's just copying what, came out before him, I said, oh, okay, I better start going and learning the real stuff.
I just thought of number 5.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Thought you were going to say CeCe DeVille of Poison.
No. No, definitely Stevie Ray.
Stevie Ray's amazing, too. Damn it. I could have put him on my list. So my list is kind of like yours. I have 4 favorites. They never change, but the 5th is a little hard. The 5th is tough to figure out, and that one changes a lot. So number 1, hands down, it's Zappa. Number 2 is Eddie Van Halen. I love
Eddie Van Halen. I just thought of him.
Yeah. How could you miss him?
I don't know. You put me on the spot, man. I just came up with guys I was thinking of.
You see that Eddie Van Halen guitar up there on the wall?
Yeah, I see it.
See Frankenstein? Yeah. I got that for my birthday one day. And it is such, like, as a Van Halen fan, and nobody sounds like Eddie Van Halen, but everybody tried to copy Eddie Van Halen. So I actually took that guitar and I've sat and I tried to really learn like some crazy Eddie Van Halen licks. And it opens up the way that he thinks about music and how different his way is, approaching the guitar compared to everybody else. So he definitely deserves a spot on that list in my mind. He's not the brightest guy. As much as I love Eddie Van Halen, rest in peace, he's not the brightest bulb. But, he's been able to take the guitar and make it his own. He's really not very good with theory and stuff like that. Right. I know he studied a little piano when he was younger, but when you actually take apart how he plays the guitar, it's not very musically scientific at all. And that's, to me, what makes him special.
Yeah. I'm surprised you picked the synthesizer player from Van Halen as one of your favorite guitar players.
Oh, synthesizer player. One of my favorite things about Eddie is he just, everybody thought he was brilliant for the tapping thing. Do you know what the tapping thing is that he does?
Yeah. Up on the neck. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, he wasn't the first to do it. He certainly it was the most popular one. But all he really did was he was just trying to go, I can play 2 notes on this string. If only I could play a 3rd note, but I've run out of fingers. So he takes his other finger and he just taps it. He just taps the note and he gets 3 notes really fast. And that's how he ends up with this. Because he's just taking 1 note and taps the other one in, just like that. And it just sounds so amazing. It just sounds so like fluid and fast, and it sounds like nothing you've ever heard before. So somebody who can come up with a style like that, like, you got to appreciate that. Hendrix for sure is one of the ones that like you will always appreciate because he's the godfather of it all.
Right.
But now everybody sounds like him. So I've really become somebody who likes guitar players who just sound a little bit different. Steve Vai is another one on my list.
Yeah.
Jeff Beck, who just died, like he plays the way that Jeff Beck plays, he's so weird with the guitar. Like every note goes, like everything's got this like fluid kind of syrupy, kind of thing like that. And it's just like, it's a new way to approach the guitar. So Jeff Beck just died, and I'm sad that I don't think a lot of people remember Jeff Beck except really hardcore guitar players. But he's really unique. He's really special. And I'd say my 5th one changes a lot. It's right now it's Trey Anastasio from Phish. I don't think a lot of people think of him as a guitar god of any.
Trey Anastasio.
Yeah, I think I even say his name wrong. Thanks for correcting me. I'm such a big fan. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. But his style of playing is really cool too. He's got that very fluid, just feels what he's feeling and puts it through his guitar. And it's a really just a great player. So those are my 5.
Yeah. For Jeff Beck, I know Jeff Beck. A lot of people consider him to be one of the best. I just not really familiar with a lot of his music growing up.
Yeah, because he never really had hits.
No.
You know, he had some hits when, I guess we weren't born.
Sure.
But they just didn't last very long. Like he was in a band with Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
He was in the Yardbirds. He's done a lot. He's done a lot.
Not as a solo musician, though, you know?
Well, in the 70s he was known. But yeah, lately not anything going on. Except one of my favorite things that he did recently was a song with Johnny Depp.
Oh, really? I heard this. I did hear this before.
Yeah, it's like an old Beatles cover, I think.
People say we got it made. Don't they know we're so afraid?
It's great. I mean, Johnny Depp sounds really good on it. Listen to it. And then Jeff Beck underneath. Just a great song.
We're afraid to be alone. Everybody got to have a home.
All right, well, a little chat about guitars, but we'll keep this thing moving. I wanted to move into a segment, a brand new segment, Scott. Brand new. It's a special segment. It's called A Trip Down Memory Lane.
Okay. Isn't that what the show's all about?
That's exactly what the show is about. And I was thinking the other day about stuff that I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot that happened. And I was like, I wonder if Scott has any stories like this. So Scott, I'm going to ask you a question before I give you my answer. What's the stupidest thing you ever did as a kid?
The stupidest thing I've ever done as a kid. I remember one time at baseball practice, I thought I was king shit because my dad pulled up and we had the air conditioner pumping in the car. And it was probably pushing 100 degrees outside. And my dad had a big ass Suburban. And we pulled up to baseball practice. My dad went over to talk to the coach about 15 minutes before practice, but a bunch of the other kids were there. And they all wanted to get in and soak up the AC. And I was like, no, I'm locking the doors. So I locked the doors and I hopped out because it was time to practice. Closed the door behind me. Locked the keys right in the car. Of course, I blame my dad for it. I don't know if he knows I'm the one that locked it, but he kind of blamed himself. So I dodged a bullet there.
Good thing he doesn't listen to the show.
I don't think he's a listener. I don't think I'm outing myself here or anything, but yeah, some big ass blue Suburban. You know, they were good on fuel back in the day. So we're probably talking 1992. I was probably 12. Gas wasn't what it is now, but I think he had to call AAA to come pop the door or something. I forget how it resolved, but that was pretty dumb. And it was one of those things where, like, as soon as it happened, like, I turned around and I was like, ah! And it was too late.
Yeah, it's how it always goes.
Yep.
My old guitar teacher, his name was Reggie Wu. Reggie Wu was in a band called Heaven's Edge. Heaven's Edge had a brief moment in the music business. You know, they had like songs on Headbangers Ball, and by the time they were getting big, grunge was starting to come in, so they didn't have, you know, a long life. But Reggie was such a great guy, and to this day, I still think of him so fondly. And he told me a story about the band. He's like, one day we were going to a gig, and this is when they weren't maybe at the peak of, you know, they weren't touring with Ronnie James Dio and Yngwie and all the people that they toured with in their heyday, but they were touring around in a van, and they were going to the next gig, and they were on I-95. You know I-95 as well as I do. Out in Philly, it's a bad road to be on, let alone to be stuck on. So they had like a flat tire or something like that, so they pulled over on I-95 in this van with all their gear heading to a show that's probably already at this point filling up with people because it was a local show in Philly. And they go out, they fix the tire, and same story. They shut the door of the running car, and they can't get back into their van, and they got to go to a show. I don't remember how it worked out. You know, we didn't have phones and Ubers back then, you know, cell phones and Ubers. So somehow I guess they got to the show. But imagine that fear. Locked out with thousands and thousands of dollars of gear on a bad part of the highway in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I can't say this is necessarily the dumbest thing I've done, but it's probably the most relatable dumb thing that I remember from a kid. A lot of the other things I did, you'd have to know the people and too much backstory and setup. So I'll go with locking the keys in the car because that stands out in my head.
Man, mine are so much dumber than yours.
What do you got?
Well, the one that I remembered, the reason I brought it up. So I just had this thought. It's with brother Steve, who we've talked about on the shows, who sent some things in. So I hope you're listening, Steve, because this is for you. Because I hope you remember this. So me and Steve we would walk around our little town in Warminster, Pennsylvania, and he had a friend named Sonny, and I swear the guy's last name was Day, Sonny Day, or something like that. But I don't think that's right, because I would have remembered that more humorously than trying to remember it now and going, was it really Sunny Day?
Yeah.
Maybe it was Sunny, something that rhymed with day. So anyway, he was wilder than us, right? Because I was this little insecure kid. And, Steve was kind of a quiet guy, very smart guy. And we're hanging out with this guy, Sonny. All right. So we went to a bowling alley all the time. That's what you do in the 80s. You hang out in the bowling alleys, So bowling alley had a couple arcades and you just hang out there. It was my favorite place to be. In the summer, I would walk to the bowling alley with these guys. And somebody got the idea. Wouldn't it be so amazing if we opened the doors of the bowling alley and yelled the word dildo inside the bowling alley and then ran away? Wouldn't that be fucking funny? Sonny goes, I'll do it. And without even thinking about it, he opens the door and we see him and he yells, dildo, at the top of his lungs. And we all start cracking up and we're booking and we are running like fucking hell. We are just envisioning everybody in the bowling alley being furious and chasing us. As we finally run out of the shopping center and look back, nobody fucking came out.
Nobody cared.
And I'm like, are we able to go back in there now? I'm sure he was seen. We can't ever go back to the bowling alley now. That stupid, dumb idea killed the bowling alley for us.
And you know how loud it is inside of a bowling alley? Nobody probably even understood or heard what the fuck he said.
That was my thought, too. What if he just went in there and all he hears, what'd that guy say? Nothing. You're a bowl strike. We just scared ourselves away from the bowling alley.
I was like, Dale who?
Yeah, but I've got even worse stories than that are just like, man, how did I survive? How did I figure out how to breathe on my own? Pretty stupid.
I have a bowling alley story for you. I was in a bowling league for quite a while, and this was when I was a kid back in the 80s. And I remember, you're in a bowling league, and all the kids have to have the wrist guards and the wrist straps, and you have your own ball and your own shoes. And the big thing that came out the one year was rosin bags that would get the moisture off your hand. It was a rosin bag that was shaped like a little ball, so you can throw it up in the air. So everybody, of course, is playing catch with it. And I just chucked this rosin bag 4 lanes down, and a kid tried to catch it, but it bounced off his hand, went down the ball return, and all of a sudden, it's fucking this grinding sound and smoke, and basically they had to bring in the technician to shut it down because the rosin bag got stuck in the ball return belt.
Oh, no.
It just blew the whole fucking thing up. You're supposed to go there and play 3 games on a Saturday morning for this league, and I don't think it started at 9. I don't think anybody got out of the alley until about 1 o'clock that day because they had to repair the lane.
That's funny. No, that's embarrassing. Yeah.
And the thing is, though, I still don't necessarily take 100% blame for it. It stands out as being a dumb thing I did by throwing this rosin bag at this kid, but he should have just fucking caught it and problem averted.
Yeah, blame him. You had nothing to do with this.
I am. I mean, I'm not one to necessarily shy away from taking blame on anything, but there's enough blame to go both ways here. Did I throw it? Yes. Did he not catch it? This is also true.
Maybe you heard somebody yell dildo behind you.
Dildo!
Could you imagine? We had a shared universe there. I did something in my world that connected to you in your world. And wouldn't you know it? That's the topic of our show today. We're talking about shared universes in cinema. And Scott, it turns out we had a shared universe as kids before we even knew each other.
Before we get off of it, though, it wouldn't have been the first time this kid was called a dildo. So I could see him responding to the name dildo being yelled in the front door.
I remember, too, that word was just funny. And I don't even think I really knew what it was, but it was just go yell it. It'll be funny.
Chode.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. What were some of the words that we used as a kid? I remember thinking dude was a hair on an elephant's butt. That's something everybody would always say, dude, do you know that a dude is a hair on an elephant's butt? What?
See, they used to say it was a pimple on a horse's ass.
That's what you'd hear?
That's what I heard it was, yeah.
There was grody.
Grody, that was one. For a hot minute, probably when I was like 13 or 14, like we would call people Shemp, and it was like another way of calling him a stooge.
That's funny.
And that like lasted a real hot minute, and you don't hear Shemp anymore.
Shempy! Yes, yo.
I've never called anybody a shemp. I've never even called anybody a stooge. That's interesting. We only grew up about an hour apart from each other, but it's funny how things are different. So I grew up outside of Philly, and you've been in Reading your whole life. When I came from Philly to Reading, I was surprised there was just an hour commute, but there was enough change in the way you spoke compared to how I spoke that I had to like kind of pick up your ways.
Yeah, it was an hour away, but worlds apart.
Yeah, it really is. It's strange. I'm trying to think of other words. Not to use the whole show thinking of old words from the day, but it was like dork was a big word. Yaha. I remember doing yaha a lot. Nuh-uh, yaha.
I hear my kids saying dumb shit now, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so annoying. And that I actually thought of Shemp just last week because I was like, yeah, we said some dumb shit too. So I guess this is just modern day dumb shit.
We got to use it. We just remind me at some point today to call somebody a Shemp. It's so good.
Shemp, you got it. Work that in. It's like your word a day calendar.
This is the Too Much CGI word a day calendar. The word for today is Shemp. I was thinking about this the other day too, talking about how amazing life really is, and how the little things that happen lead to big things sometimes down the line. So I'm really into photography, as you know. Do you know that you're the reason I'm really into photography?
No idea.
No idea how?
How so? Because I'm your model. Paint me like one of your French girls.
You're my muse.
No, how so?
You're a photographer at your wedding.
Oh, Tina
Dolan. Tina Dolan actually is an amazing photographer. She's out now in L.A. I've actually lost track with her, but she's doing great out in L.A. I think she shoots for Playboy and stuff like that. But, just a chance at your wedding to just strike up a conversation with a photographer. She and I became friends after your wedding. She showed me some things that helped me get into the photography scene, and I just totally fell in love with it.
Our wedding was actually one of the last weddings that she did. She was sick of the wedding game and the posing and all this and that. She was actually moving over into print photography, like for magazines and doing photo spreads for magazines right before or right as we hired her for our wedding. But, we saw her sign hanging up and we called it. It turns out that where the sign was hanging was just because the old landlord didn't take it down. She didn't have a studio anymore or anything. But she was like, I'll shoot your wedding, but like, you don't want like, okay, now grandma, now grandpa, now that side. I'm like, no, I want like a cool wedding shoot. So do what you typically do with your magazine shoots, and we'll do our engagement photos that way. We'll do our wedding photos that way. Yeah, 90% of it came back with a Dutch slant, but we had her edit some of that out, and we couldn't be happier.
She's got a great eye. I mean, it's hard to find artists who do things out of the box now because everybody's doing everything. Everybody's trying their hand at music and photography and all these things that used to be out of reach. You'd have to learn how to develop your own film. You'd have to learn how to put, images onto emulsion and print all that stuff. Like all that stuff's gone.
Yeah.
You'd have to learn how to use a manual camera. It's really pretty easy to do now with these new cameras or even your phone to take great pictures. So the challenges are gone in a lot of these things.
Yeah. I remember the other game where like, oh, I'll be your photographer, but I'm going to own the prints. And anytime you want to print something out, you're going to have to pay me for it, or I'm going to have to do it for you. Then you pay me. She was basically like, here, take all of it. I don't want any of this shit. Like it was your wedding. I'm done with it. So it was just like, yeah, cool. I'll pay you what you want. It's a great setup.
I would suspect she had other sources of income. So at that point, when you had your wedding, was that probably good 15 years ago?
Going on 13 September.
Just like now, the world was changing then. It's like the business of photography to go and shoot a wedding, then go get the prints made and mark up every print, and then walk away with, $3,000 profit from a bunch of weeks' work. Not just the wedding day, but you had to do all the editing, retouching, and then sending it out to print. Like, yeah, Tina did it the opposite way.
Yeah.
But a lot more wedding photographers are doing it Tina's way now. So the old traditional photography industry is in flux right now.
But yeah, to your earlier point, technology is the reason for all this change. Musicians, you don't have to have a recording studio anymore. Even what we're doing right here, you don't have to have a recording studio. We wouldn't have been able to do this 10 years ago. And you don't have to have a darkroom to develop photos anymore. So it's just more accessible, but maybe takes away from some of the uniqueness and the specialty of people making a living in those fields.
I think it does. So I was watching that Corridor Crew show again the other day, and they had just put an episode up where they basically acted out an anime scene and used AI. We've been talking a bunch about AI and the new AI revolution. They used AI to create an anime movie just based on this like crappy little posing and some of the blocking that they did just to film this stuff in there on a phone. I guess they used a phone to film it. That's not hard.
You certainly don't need months worth of animation and inkers and colors and everything else to start cranking out cartoons. Everything is computer generated.
The other day I was going through my Facebook feed, which I barely use, but I was like, I haven't been through this in a while. Let me look at some of my old pictures. And I saw a picture of me and my son. It was a drawing from Rags Morales. Rags is a well-known comic artist.
Yeah.
He drew Superman comics, and he drew me and my son into a Superman comic, into one of the new 52 Superman comics. And I was so touched by that. And I remember I showed my son, and he's like, oh, that's cool. What's on YouTube? Like, he was so blown away by YouTube. Nothing else could, impress him. But it was always like, you don't understand. One day you'll understand how special this is, that this guy was able to draw this, and he's able to draw this whole story. And that's so amazing. But now, again, think about his age, because he's not even 20 yet. He's growing up in an AI world.
Yeah.
So you kind of don't need to draw anymore when you can just tell Midjourney what you want the drawing to be.
Exactly.
So weird. And that's what our show is about. Remembering the old days, not shitting on the new stuff as much as just going, things are changing. You got to own change. But sometimes you just miss the creativity of the old days.
Bill, before we had refrigerators, used to be a job called icemen, too, where they would deliver ice every day. So technology takes things away from people.
Yeah, but we're here to give it all back to you, everybody. We're here to give it all back to you. So why don't we kick into our main segment then, Scott?
Okay.
So let's talk about connected universes, movies that are connected to each other, maybe movies that were connected to each other and you didn't know. So I'm hoping that we bring some things to you and you go, holy shit, I didn't know that. So the reason that I came up with this idea, and I reached out to you, I said, hey, we should do this, is because I was watching Friday the 13th recently. And one of the things that it talked about was Jason Goes to Hell. It was a version of one of the episodes of the whole series that was a lot different than everything else. And at one scene, the camera sort of passes by and you see the Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon, right, from Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and remember thinking, oh, wow. So that puts these movies in the same universe. And you're sure it was a nod. It really wasn't we had the rights to do this type of thing. It was more of a wink and just a whatever for horror fans. At the end of that movie, that was the one where the hockey mask lands in the dirt and Freddy's arm pops out and grabs it and pulls it down. And then we were all excited because now finally we're maybe going to get a Freddy vs. Jason. But, Freddy vs. Jason versus Evil Dead, because Evil Dead was in there. And stuff like that is really cool. I remember as well watching Predator 2. And then they walked through a room where you could see all the kills that the Predators.
The
trophies, thank you. And there's an alien from the Aliens movie.
Yep.
And it was just like a little Easter egg. But that puts those two things in the same universe. And sure enough, that Easter egg was spotted by enough people that it became a comic book.
Yeah.
And that comic book became a video game. And that video game became a movie. And yeah, so these things are out there. And they don't usually take off like Aliens vs. Predator. But I'm hoping that we can bring up a few and share them with the audience that they may not have even known about.
When you brought this up to me, I thought back to our last episode when for our avid listeners, I tried to put together a theme song challenge quiz to chump Bill. Did really well, but at the end I threw on just the Looney Tunes theme, and you kind of got nostalgic for Roger Rabbit, and you called it a crossover. And until you said that, I never really considered Roger Rabbit to be a crossover. Looking back, yeah, it absolutely was, but this was at a time where all these movies didn't tie together. So Roger Rabbit was one that I wrote down here. And then even more recently than that, the Chip and Dale movie that they made for Disney Plus. A lot of people are looking at that as Roger Rabbit 2, because in that show or in that movie, all the cartoon characters are actually actors in the cartoons, regardless of where they're coming from. So they had Disney, they had Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes, they had characters from new DreamWorks movies in there. So it was like a whole lot of this world, really, where all these cartoon people exist, but they exist as actors in their respected movies, regardless of what studio they were coming from.
Yeah, that Chip and Dale movie was really good. And you're right. It was the continuation of the Toontown.
They had Dip. They brought Dip back from Roger Rabbit.
I don't remember them mentioning that, did they?
Yeah.
I do remember Roger Rabbit being in it, just like a cameo.
Yeah, they talked about Dip and how that's like the evil eraser of all cartoons.
Dip.
Eddie, there's dip everywhere!
But of course, and I kind of just mentioned it, now there's the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the 5 different DCU that's going on there with this Batman and that Joker. And now they're putting it back together. And we talk about this a lot on here with James Gunn and Paul Safran and them being charged of this DCU. We're talking about universes that existed before it was the norm. And you're right, that Alien versus Predator thing all came from them having the skeleton of one of the aliens on that ship that Danny Glover walked by. And that, I remember that was a huge deal back when I was in elementary school.
It might have been one of the first Easter eggs.
Yeah, you might be right.
Well, I'll get started on my list. So my list, I'm picking obvious ones and moving, to more obscure ones, if you will. So the first one I have on my list, I'm sure you have on your list. It's E.T. in Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't have it on my list, but I know exactly where you're going with this and what you're talking about.
And I'm not even going to say it's the time when E.T. is walking and sees the kid on Halloween dressed as Yoda.
No.
It's more that during the Galactic Senate scenes, you could actually see that there's ETs in one of the little pods. They're there discussing, politics in the galaxy. It's the damn ETs.
Yep. And really small in the background. You really have to search to see them, but they are there, and it's all in universe.
There you go. E.T. and Star Wars. Luke Skywalker and E.T. They existed together.
And it's probably not too surprising, seeing as how, Spielberg and Lucas are very friendly. I wonder if that means that E.T.'s healing power was really the Force. He's Force sensitive.
Dude, I've had that thought. Yeah.
He also levitated plants, and he made the plant come back to life. Didn't he levitate things as well?
He did. Boxes.
Yeah, he had the Force. That's right.
On Dagobah. Don't you remember E.T. on Dagobah?
He was in that cave.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll make up stuff. He was just swimming around in the swamp. You look in the back and his head just goes. Yeah, that was E.T.
He was Red 4 on the attack on the Death Star.
I heard he was Porkins.
He was Porkins. He was Porkins' droid. Chet Porkins.
I know that there's other little Easter eggs like between Steven Spielberg and Lucas. Like, which one is it? Oh, it's Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and Time. If you look behind him, I think the bar is called the Obi-Wan bar or something like that.
It is.
Yeah. I think there's little hieroglyphics of hieroglyphics. I can never say that goddamn word. Hieroglyphics of R2-D2 and C-3PO somewhere behind them in the first couple scenes. Yeah, fun stuff like that.
Yep.
All right, what do you got?
The first one I remember growing up that stood out the most to me, and I didn't think much of it because there weren't that many movies out for him at the time. But I remember Pulp Fiction was one of my favorite movies when I was in high school. And in there, Bruce Willis walks into the bar where Marcellus Wallace was and buys a pack of Red Apple cigarettes. And Red Apple cigarettes were also what was smoked in Reservoir Dogs. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They're both Quentin Tarantino movies. Red Apple showed up in a bunch of other things. And now, as it turns out, there's a whole Tarantino-verse going on where basically the Kill Bills were a movie that existed in the Tarantino-verse world that was a bigger thing of Fox Force 5, which is what Mia Wallace starred in as a pilot in Pulp Fiction. So there's this whole, everything feeds into the next thing. So Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, the Kill Bills, like I said, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's a thread that goes through all of them. They're all in the same universe.
That's right, and they're buried. A lot of them are buried very deeply. Like some of them haven't even come out yet, according to some of the actors.
Yeah, some of them are like how the history in that universe differs from ours, such as Inglourious Bastards and Django. Some of them were just, like I said, movies that exist in that universe, such as Kill Bill and the other things like that. So it's not necessarily that they're all characters in the same world, but all these things exist in the same universe.
So I had that one too. I have a couple other things to add to it. So Michael Madsen's character in Reservoir Dogs is John Travolta's character's brother.
Vic Vega.
The Vega brothers.
Vincent Vega and Vic Vega, yeah. Oh, Dusk Till Dawn was another one. That was another Tarantino thing, I think, that was wrapped into this world as well. I could be wrong on that one.
I saw that same interview, I think you did, where Tarantino says, yeah, things like Dusk Till Dawn, things like Kill Bill, those are movies that the guys in this in my universe would watch. So, the line that you just said. So I think that was actually part of that.
Maybe.
Yeah. But how about Inglourious Bastards? The one of the guys in Inglourious Bastards, I think was Brad Pitt's character, is the father of another guy in True Romance. Like, he's actually brought these characters through even stories or movies that he didn't direct. Just the shit he wrote.
Yeah.
So he's been bringing, he's been tying these guys together all along. That's pretty cool. So apparently he was going to make a Vega Brothers movie that was in the cards. Michael Madsen's talked about it. He's like, yeah, they were really going to do this because I got killed in my movie. My, quote, brother John Travolta got killed in his movie, and it was going to be a story talking about who we are and, how we got to where we got killed.
Got killed in the shitter because the Pop-Tarts popped up.
That's right. What a way to go. That's Elvis style. Bruce
Willis shot him down.
I got to go see Pulp Fiction again. It's been a while, but that's a movie I think you got to watch every 5 years to remind yourself how good it is. Well, speaking of Quentin Tarantino, he did some stuff with Robert Rodriguez in the past. He worked on Dusk Till Dawn, I think, with him.
Yeah.
I know he worked on those Grindhouse, the Death Proof things with him.
Yeah.
So did you know that Robert Rodriguez made Spy Kids?
Yes, I did know this, yes. With Ricardo Montalban.
Did you know Robert Rodriguez made Machete?
Uncle Machete is in Spy Kids.
That movie, Machete. That fucking guy is the same character from the kids movie.
I know.
I love it. I think it's so funny. It's like in the kids movie, he's like, he makes like shit like he's remember there's a scene he holds up his thumb. He goes, look, the world's smallest camera. And you can look at his thumb and like supposedly you see a camera, but it's so small you don't see it. It's just a dumb dad joke. And then in this other movie, he's jumping in like motorcycles with machine guns, blowing the fuck out of people. It's just super funny to me to know that in this universe, there's a movie made for kids and it's super G-rated and a movie made for adults and it's hard R. I think that's really cool. That's funny as shit.
Machete was no joke.
Machete. I always heard they were going to make a sequel to that, but they never did.
Oh, I thought there were like 2 or 3 of them out there. No? Maybe I'm dreaming it up.
Oh, I didn't even say who Machete was. Danny Trejo, the great Danny Trejo. So it says here, according to Trejo, Rodriguez had scripts for the first of 2 Machete sequels.
Never came out. Okay.
But yeah, didn't make them. All right, what do you got?
So speaking of directors that have their own universes, how about the View Askew-averse? Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
Jersey boy Kevin Smith, of course, famous for Clerks, Clerks 2, newly released Clerks 3, Mallrats, Chasing Amy was in there. The Jay and Silent Bob movies were in there. Dogma was another one.
Yeah.
They're all connected, and not just because of movies, which was the Golden God, and basically they're making fun and poking fun at Mickey Mouse and Disney. The Scream universe, Wes Craven's Scream movies are also part of this universe. Jay and Silent Bob go to Hollywood to stop production on a Jay and Silent Bob movie, which is based on a comic book that was drawn in their likeness. Because fucking Dawson from Dawson's Creek and Jason Biggs, or the guy that was fucking a pie, as they call him.
Hey, wait a second. Are you that guy that fucked a pie?
Are basically cast as their characters, and they fucking don't want to be coming off as a bunch of posers, so they're trying to shut it down. But while they're there, they're shooting a fictional Scream 4 movie, and the town where the Scream movies take place is actually in the View Askew-averse world. So the Scream movies and all the movies I just mentioned beforehand are all connected.
I don't know if Wes Craven realized that he was allowing that to connect when he did that scene, but you're right. It's now connected by our logic here.
I assume that means that Dawson's Creek exists in that same universe as well, because they were very well aware of James Van Der Beek and Dawson's Creek and the role he played in Dawson's Creek and American Pie.
Yeah, didn't he call him a pie fucker?
Pie fucker.
How far does that universe go? Because he made Red State, he made Tusk. Are those in the view? Mallrats? Like, is all of this tied together, or is it only some things? Maybe only the things that Jay and Silent Bob appear in.
Maybe, but weren't Jay and Silent Bob in Mallrats? It's been a while since I've seen Mallrats.
Oh, yeah, I guess they were.
Duh.
Yeah, and I think Chasing Amy ties into it as well. I really haven't done a whole lot of research on this. You can read about it online, but like I tried to do a lot of this just from what I remember. Who knows? I guess it could all tie together. If it doesn't right now, it could at some point. He's still making movies.
Does Jiggly tie into this? Didn't he make that? Jiggly? Didn't he make Copland? I'm still thinking about other Kevin Smith movies. Jersey Girl, is that him?
That's the one with J-Lo?
I'm pretty sure he made a movie with J-Lo, with...
Matt Damon?
Matt Damon.
Yeah, I'm going through his IMDb. I forgot he made all these. So let's do a little run through of Kevin Smith movies. So I'm just going to run through 1992, Mayday, The Crumbling of a Documentary. It's a short. Okay, so this is him, kind of practicing, right? Then he puts out Clerks in 1994, followed up by Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the Concert for New York City, did some kind of segment there. Did something, I won't talk about the TV shorts and all these things, because you're right, he's done a lot of other little things, like an episode of Supergirl, it looks like. But his main movie, so then he goes back to doing films, and he does Jersey Girl.
Really?
Yeah, he did do that. I was starting to doubt myself after I said it.
I didn't know he did that.
He did Clerks 2. Zack and Miri Make a Porno. Remember that movie?
I didn't know he had anything to do with that, but I do remember that movie.
Yeah, he directed that. Cop Out. So Zack and Miri Make a Porno. That was with Seth Rogen, Elizabeth Banks, and then he moves right into Cop Out. That's got Bruce Willis and that other funny guy. What's his name? Oh, the guy that was in the car accident.
Tracy Morgan.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's real funny. I didn't know. I don't think I remember Cop Out. And I think I thought Zack and Miri was a Judd Apatow movie just because of the actors that were in it. I mean, you see Seth Rogen and Elizabeth Banks, the first thing I think of is Judd Apatow.
No, that was, in this case, that was him. Yeah, and then it goes into Tusk, Yoga Hosers, if you remember that. It was like a weird Tusk sequel with Johnny Depp playing a role that is hysterical.
I remember Tusk was just like a monster movie.
Kinda, yeah, but it's a weird, dark comedy kind of horror movie. Yeah, and then he goes back to Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Something called Kilroy was here in 2022. I don't even know what that is. And then Clerks 3, which I tried to watch a couple weeks ago and couldn't even get 20 minutes through it. I was so bored.
I haven't tried this one. I do like his podcast.
He's pretty successful, I guess. I mean, these are well-known things. I don't know how much money all this made, but you can tell by the end of it, it's lost steam.
Yeah.
I think the whole Kevin Smith thing is, it peaks like anything. Howard Stern peaks, and then now he's still in the air, and he's still got people like me listening, but we're the last of the diehards. You know what I mean? Like, the last of the diehards are probably still really into...
You don't think he's bringing any more, bringing no fresh blood into the stream here?
Nah, nothing good. Talk about Stern?
I was talking about Kevin Smith, but...
No, nothing good. Nothing that I could see.
What a shemp.
There it is. I was waiting for the callback. Did you know that Blade Runner and Aliens are in the same universe?
Really?
So in Blade Runner, there's the Tyrell Corporation.
Yes.
In Aliens, or Alien, there's the Wayland Corporation. So the confirmation that these two companies are connected came in the 20th anniversary Alien DVD from 1999 with the DVD extra titled Nostromo Dossier, which mentions Dallas taking a paycheck from the Tyrell Corporation. So you hear this little thing and you go, oh, wait, the Tyrell Corporation, that's from Blade Runner. And that's it. That puts them all in the same universe. One little statement like that.
I think they did things in that Prometheus movie that tied the two of them together more, too.
I couldn't get through that. Someday I'm going to have to give that another try. Did you see that movie?
I did. And if I were to say that I understood what I was watching all the way through and the connections they had back to Alien and Aliens and Alien 3, I would be lying. Because I guess I wasn't that big a fan of those movies. I liked them, sure. But like, I know people that must have been really like enthralled with them to be able to understand what some of these connections were. It was just lost on me.
Yeah, I wanted to be a fan, but they weren't good. After a while, the aliens just got really shitty. Yeah, I just stopped caring. I'm pretty sure there's an Aliens movie I haven't even seen, if I'm right. The last one I may have missed.
The same with Predator. Like, they started just making so many of them with similar names, but I think Alien and Aliens was the first franchise to have like the sequel just be plural. But then you get like Predator, then you get like Predators, then you get like Predator versus Alien, Predator versus Alien 2. It's just like, oh my God, how convoluted can you get? Name it something different to make it stand out.
Well, they tried that new Predator movie with the native tribe, and that was good.
That was Prey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we forgot it. Like, I don't know. It's these things. I don't think they have the life that these producers really think they do. They buy this property, they pay a lot of money for it. They're like, force out content. But I mean, we like Predator, but Prey was forgettable. Most of the shit was forgettable, if not bad.
Yeah, Predator is the action movie's equivalent of Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
They keep making them. The franchise is there. It's still living and breathing, but is it good? Eh.
Well, since we're talking about Predator, I can tell you about another connected universe.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Valverde?
No.
It's a fictional country that's been used in a lot of movies by this guy, Steven De Souza. All right. So he's a writer and a producer. And anytime he needs a fictional country down south, like where Commando needs to go fight, or where the Duke from Predator needs to go fight, it's always this made up country. So this made up country has actually appeared in a bunch of different movies whenever Steven De Souza is writing the movie.
That's hilarious. You know what this means? This means that the new Top Gun Maverick movie could have taken place in Valverde because they never really said who the enemy was.
Could be.
You don't want to offend any of these other foreign countries or foreign markets because you want their money from their box offices too. So we make up Valverde, we're good to go.
Yeah, remember in the 80s when it was like, you had Red Dawn, they had the guts to be like, we're going after we're just making a movie where the Russians are the bad guys. And everybody else was like, we're not going to go, we're going to go after another country that you're just going to, assume is Russia.
Yeah.
We're too afraid to make any trouble. So let me show you a couple appearances of Valverde. So in in Wikipedia here, it says Valverde is a fictional country or city used by Hollywood writer and producer Steven De Souza when his stories required a South or Central American locale that will not cause legal or diplomatic problems. The location first appeared in his 1985 film Commando. So as I go through here, we have Commando, we have Die Hard 2. General Raymond Esperanza is from Valverde.
Okay.
Some of these I don't even know. Broforce. Video game had Valverde. I've never heard of that.
Broforce?
Adventure Inc. I don't know that. Super Carrier. I don't know that. De Souza believes that Predator takes place in Valverde.
They never really said where it did take place. He just went to a South American country, right?
Yeah. Predator, like Commando, was produced by Joel Silver and starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, in Predators, the 2010 one, Isabel states that the events of the original film took place in Guatemala, though part of the first film's act takes place in another unnamed country. The Predator novelization also places the events in Guatemala. So what the fuck are you saying? And I think we have a non-story here.
It could be Valverde, Guatemala. It could be a made-up city in Guatemala.
Yeah. Well, it's here too. Valverde appears in the TV show NCIS. Valverde is one of the settings for the 2018 film Commando Ninja. So it's been used, obviously several times. So does that link everything together? By our rules, yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Fuck yes.
I have one here that's not a place that ties the movies together, but a person. And they're two very unseemingly different movies that tie together, but Wayne's World, which was a childhood favorite of mine, and Terminator 2.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good one.
Wayne's driving the Mirthmobile down the road. He gets pulled over by a motorcycle cop, and it is Robert Patrick reprising his role as the T-1000 looking for Edward Furlong.
Didn't he run in that scene too to chase them?
Well, Wayne yells at the camera, and then he yells at the steering wheel, and then floors it, and then Robert Patrick starts chasing him like he did when he was chasing the car, when he turned his arms into like those bars, and he didn't turn into metal or anything. I don't think Wayne's World had that kind of budget, but he did start doing like the fast pumping arm run after the car, but he never caught him. It was just like a quick throwaway line, but have you seen this boy? He's like, wow! But ties it all together.
It's such a weird run. I never forgot that guy's run.
Yeah.
Ran like he had a pole up his ass.
It looked very robotic. Though.
I always wondered, like, did he run that way for the character, or was just, they hired him?
You think that's his run?
Yeah, they didn't say, hey, we need you to run. And then he runs on set, and he runs like a weirdo, and they're like, uh-oh. Well, we already paid him. I guess we got a weirdo running.
Well, I bet you if he ran differently, they would have had a director come in and set it straight. What was that? They're like skipping. The T-1000 skipping after a car.
Hopscotching.
Cut.
Hey, man, so...
Robert, hey, take 5, everybody. Robert, come here a second. We have to talk about this.
Robert, you ever play a sport?
No? I can see why.
No. Nobody ever teased you running the bases? No? Nobody did? Nobody? You ever notice your shoes wear very unnaturally? By this awkward walking that you do? No? Never. All right, here's my last one. So, Pacific Carrier. You ever heard of Pacific Carrier?
No, I don't think I'm familiar with this at all. It doesn't ring a bell for me now.
Sometimes I see it said Pacific Courier. No? Not ringing a bell? Well, Pacific Carrier or Courier is a service that appears in Die Hard with a Vengeance. But it also appears in Speed. All of a sudden, you see the same courier system show up in the Speed movies. Therefore, by our logic, completely the same universe because they shared a simple fictional UPS company.
I can picture the scene in Die Hard with a Vengeance where the package was delivered with the riddle and everything. I can't remember a scene in Speed where there was a courier.
Well, I may have misspoke. Let me read what it says here. The terrorists arrive in a truck that is green with a white top with Pacific Courier on the top, or on the side, rather. Ironically, Pacific Courier translates to mean bringer of peace. Atlantic Courier, presumably a subsidiary, was used in Die Hard with a Vengeance, in which Hans Gruber's brother is the villain. Pacific Courier also appeared in Speed. The link between all three, production designer Jackson de Gavoya.
So we have Pacific and Atlantic couriers.
Yeah. So it's more, it looks like I made the claim that they are directly connected. Now it looks like they're kind of like loosely connected based on the play of the name of these couriers.
Gotcha.
Oh, well.
All right.
Ended on a turkey.
Gobble, gobble.
That's all I got for my list here. Anything? That's all yours?
That's really it. I have a couple other little things written down, but they're not nearly as interesting as this. I think we ought to move into the news. The Hollywood Reporter says Seth Rogen, who we mentioned earlier, Seth Rogen unveils the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie cast. So there's another movie coming out. Rose Byrne, John Cena, Jackie Chan, Ice Cube, Paul Rudd, and Maya Rudolph are among the cast. Are you interested in more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, Scott?
I don't think I am. No. This is not one where they're going to have female turtles, right? That's just the comic book we said last week.
Yeah, I think that's a totally unrelated story, but who knows? Maybe this is going to come out and use that. I don't even know if it's a CG animated movie, so it's not even going to be like much different than I think the last thing that came out. I don't know why it needs a reboot.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure there's a big audience for this.
I don't know. I think kids are still watching it.
Yeah,
I do. Talking about last week's story about female turtles and the original turtles being killed off, I have to come clean about something. I have a fuck-uppery. I'd said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of jumped the shark for me when they had Ice Cube come in and sing the ninja rap. And the fact that you just said Ice Cube is a cast for this, that was Vanilla Ice. And in my head, I pictured Vanilla Ice. Listening in playback when I said Ice Cube, I was like, oh, you stupid fuck. What have you done?
I can't believe I didn't even catch it either. Like you said it right now, and I caught it. I went, oh, right. No. But yeah, it must have gone right by me.
So when you just said Ice Cube, and I was just like, time to come clean. But yeah, no, it was clearly Vanilla Ice doing the ninja rap.
I even know I went, go ninja, and you had said Ice Cube. Damn it.
Yep.
I could have saved you, but I fucked up too.
Quite all right, man. So there's a fuck-uppery. Does the article say, are they still owned by Nickelodeon? Because Nickelodeon was putting out the last few Ninja Turtles movies that were animated.
Says here it's owned by one Paul Rubens.
Paul Rubens. I knew it.
It's me, Pee-wee.
It just says here Paramount has set a release date of August 4th for Mutant Mayhem.
So it could be it could be Nickelodeon, because that Paramount is the parent company of Nickelodeon.
Does it seem weird that Seth Rogen's doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies now?
I mean, I think most of his decisions are made while he's very high, so nothing surprises me that Seth Rogen does.
Mine sounded like Butthead. Yours sounded pretty good. All right, here's another story from Deadline. Goosebumps author R.L. Stine edits book series, changes mental health, weight, and ethnicity references. And we were talking the other episode about how they go back and they're changing movies now. They go in and they edit things and they change them. Disney went back and censored some things that they thought was inappropriate or not sensitive to things. So here's another case of that. So it says, R.L. Stine is revisiting his popular Goosebumps book series and making edits to the published works with a more inclusive language. The move from Scholastic comes after Penguin hired sensitivity readers to edit Ronald Dahl's books, or Roald Dahl's. I always say his name wrong.
Roll. I do too.
From language deemed inappropriate in today's world. However, there was so much backlash over Penguin's move that the publisher said that they would make available unrevised version of Dahl's books later this year under the banner the Roald Dahl Classic Collection, giving readers the option to choose which one to read. So I wonder if they're going to do that for this. It's interesting. Now they're going back and they're changing stories like crazy.
Did you read the Goosebumps series books at all when you were a kid?
No, I didn't. Did you?
I read a few of them, yeah. And they were such kind of junk food books. I feel there were so many of them. Like, my kids are reading Captain Underpants and stuff like that now, and Dog Man. And like these books come out like maybe 2 a year, maybe once a year. Like Harry Potter, they were dropping Harry Potter books like every year and a half. I feel like R.L. Stine Goosebumps books, there was a new one every week. So they're going back and rewriting and they were always like Goosebumps number this, and it would have like a subtitle, and Goosebumps number that. And there were so many of them. I can't imagine they're going back and rewriting all of them. Like the most current Goosebumps thing I can think of is they made 2 Goosebumps movies starring Jack Black, and they kind of tied together a lot of they're almost like short stories. Like the books were only, not even 100 pages. And as you mentioned there in the story, the Scholastic reader, like it was almost like you would get the book forms at school and go home and your parents would like fill them out and write you a check and you bring it back to school. And then the next week they deliver, book delivery. That's how I remember getting the Goosebumps books. I can't believe that, 1, they're still being written, and 2, that they're going to rewrite all of these books, because there have to be hundreds of them.
I don't know if the revisions are that big. So here's an example. In The Curse of Camp Cold Lake from 1997, the boys of summer camp are no longer described as giving a loud wolf whistle and are now said to have whistled loudly. The same year I Live in Your Basement was published, where the protagonist of the novel asks, "Did he really expect me to be a slave forever?" The protagonist now asks, "Did he really expect me to do this forever?"
I remember that book. That's funny. So there's small things, but yeah, I'd be surprised kids are going back and even still reading the classic Goosebumps books.
Were these school books?
No, they were books that. You remember Scholastic, or I can't remember Troll. Remember Troll books? Like you get like the maybe 4 sheets and have all different kinds of books that you could buy, and you would take it home and your parents would fill out the order form, and sometimes you get a free bookmarker. Like there used to be book fairs put on by Scholastic, but in between the book fairs, there were these papers that were sent home usually once a month, and it gave you the opportunity to order books through the school, but they weren't like textbooks or anything like that. A lot of the Scholastic books are books you'd find in the school library.
So if this is a brand that works with schools and are, known to bring in content from school libraries, I guess I understand why they want to go and, try to clean this up a bit.
Yeah.
But then you look at something like that Roald Dahl stuff. That guy's been around forever. That stuff I read as a kid.
Yeah.
And some of that was a little rough.
Yeah.
I remember it being a little rough, but we were a little rough back then. We were more rough and tumbly than we are now. So to go back and change stuff like that's not being given to anyone in schools, that's weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not to, get onto that whole, political debate, but how much of this is PC gone mad and how much of it is just unfair? I mean, is Roald Dahl even alive?
No.
Are they changing his works? and he doesn't even get to say no. That's kind of sucky.
He's long since deceased. Yeah, his books were the changes they made in there were not as small as the examples you're giving here. His changes were quite large with racist overtones, sexist and gender role overtones, things like that. They were written in a different time, clearly. I guess if they want schools to continue using these books, they're going to try and clean them up. I don't know.
I don't know either. And part of it, and again, we don't get too political on this show very often, but, I look at it like you start erasing this stuff, then you kind of deny it even happened, the bad stuff.
Right.
It's the same thing that we learned as we got older, that, hey, you know what? Americans weren't really that good to the Indians, as we celebrate Thanksgiving. So by changing these stories and denying that we said shit like this in our books and, we say slavery, but it happened, so to pretend that we don't even use the word anymore doesn't make sense to me. It just seems very odd.
The fact that these things happen was bad enough, and it's part of our history. And to deny that history and to deny future generations from reading about that history, that is equally as bad.
A lot of people use pop culture as their basis of all culture.
Sure.
Pop culture can absolutely influence people and send them the wrong way, send the wrong messages when they're trying to do the right thing. So it's possible. It's possible this could all go south on us. We'll see.
And again, not wanting to get too political or and divisive, but how is that part of freedom of speech, freedom of press?
I love how we say not to get too political, and then we get political. I love
no
that.
offense, but go fuck yourself. But I said no offense.
Yeah. Anytime somebody's about to say something that's going to fucking offend you, they start with no offense, but you're like, uh-oh, brace yourself. Here's another from Deadline. Arrowverse co-creator Mark Guggenheim. It's a fun name. On not getting a call from DC studio bosses James Gunn and Peter Safran. Safran. Did I say his name right? Safran. Peter Safran.
Safran's how I say it. I don't know how it's actually pronounced.
Mark Guggenheim, the creator of the Arrowverse, shared that he was disappointed not getting a call from Peter and James to construct the new DC universe. Guggenheim was one of the creators of Crisis on Infinite Earths, the CW's crossover event that brought together DC shows like The Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Batwoman, and Legends of Tomorrow. Making such a feat happen was no easy task, and the writer felt gutted that his efforts were not taken into consideration by the new DC studio heads for at least a meeting. I think they meet for at least not taking a meeting with him. Not a job, mind you, a meeting, he says, a conversation, a small recognition of what I'd try to contribute to the grand tapestry that is the DC universe. I'd only spent 9 years tolling in that vineyard after all, Guggenheim wrote on his Legal Dispatch newsletter. So he's not very happy. He did all this work and he's forgotten about as the DC reboots. What do you think of that?
I think there's only one way to get back at him. Go to Twitter and tweet the most ridiculous fucking racist thing you can. Because that's what people in the DC universe do.
You got a point there. Yeah, go create some controversy in social media.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
I read this right away and I was just like, dude, welcome to business. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Your Arrowverse shit wasn't that good. I'm sorry. Nobody's going to really remember this Arrowverse, Flash, and Supergirl. It only was good for a couple years. So I don't know, man. You would be my first pick to hire for the DCU.
This whole reboot means that everything you did is being thrown out and is no longer canon. So they're hitting the reset button, which basically deletes everything you did from this new world moving forward. So moving forward really means moving forward.
Well, I wonder if he's saying more of, hey, you didn't give me a job to work on new characters and new stories.
Maybe.
I think he's more about that than saying, hey, you're not taking my characters with you.
I understand.
Which I get.
Understand. But if you're moving forward, let's just clean the slate. They didn't bring many people along for the ride.
I just wonder how big a deal this guy thinks he is in his own head. I'm fucking slagging this guy. I don't even know him. I didn't like his shows. I got into Supergirl for a hot minute, but it was definitely a teen soap opera mixed in with some decent special effects and at times, and some action scenes. I love watching anybody super beat the shit out of somebody else. So I was watching Supergirl fast forwarding through anything that wasn't her wearing that costume because it was just a kid's soap opera when it wasn't a superhero show.
Yeah, those CW shows were kind of rough as far as dialogue and making me care.
Here's some breaking news from just Friday. Jake Gyllenhaal appears ready to rumble as he stripped down for a surprise appearance at UFC 285 in Las Vegas on Friday. A ripped Gyllenhaal was shooting scenes for the forthcoming reimagining of the 1989 film Roadhouse, playing an ex-UFC fighter this time.
Oh, I thought you were saying Jake Gyllenhaal's joining the UFC.
That's what I first thought as I was reading this, and then they're like, it's just a gimmick to sort of promote this Roadhouse. And then I went, they're making another Roadhouse?
So I fell for the clickbait. I did hear they're making a new Roadhouse.
Talk about a movie you don't need a remake of.
R.I.P. Patrick Swayze.
Was Roadhouse so good that it needs a remake?
People liked Roadhouse.
Did they? I forget Roadhouse.
They remade Dirty Dancing. They're just going through the Patrick Swayze catalog and remaking all of them.
How many are there? I guess they got Ghost, and then there's no more.
Ghost is coming.
Oh, we mentioned Red Dawn earlier. Wasn't he in the first Red Dawn?
He was. They remade that.
Yeah, everything this guy touches gets remade. Didn't Point Break get remade?
Did it?
I think it did. This poor guy can't get a break.
God damn it.
Rest in peace, Patrick Swayze. I wish they were remaking your movie. All right, we'll end with one more little story. I thought this was pretty good. What do you think of Willem Dafoe?
I like Willem Dafoe. He creeped me out when I was a kid, but I really do like Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe asked Emma Stone to slap him 20 times on set, according to the actress. Willem Dafoe reportedly let Emma Stone slap him over 20 times for a scene he's not even part of.
What?
Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe are set to star in two Yorgos Lanthimos feature films. I don't know who that is. The movies are called Poor Things and. Thanks for naming a movie and. That's hard to say. Poor Things and. Though the pair are working together for two films, it was only in the movie And that the actress apparently had to slap the actor, as reported by the New York Times. The slapping event occurred off screen, and Willem Dafoe wasn't even part of the scene. The actress couldn't help but admire the veteran actor for his good-natured personality. She said, "There's this instinct to perform that many actors have, the look at me kind of performer. He's the opposite of that. Maybe it's changed through the years. A lot of actors I bond with have been doing this for a long time, and they've just gone from I to we." So essentially, he's back off scene, saying, "Here, slap. Nope, do it again. Let's get it right." He's not even in the scene. And it says here later, Dafoe felt like Stone needed to interact with him behind the scenes to get used to her character. It doesn't matter if it involves Dafoe getting slapped. If it can help his co-star, he's going to do it. He apparently agreed to let Stone slap him as many times as needed. Film director Lanthimos commented Dafoe and said, commended Dafoe and said, pertaining to the actor coming on set, even though he doesn't need to, that's what you want from actors, to want to be part of it in any way. And this was really interesting to me because I always think about productions and I always think about these big stars. Do they come in, film their things, go right back to their little trailers and then just go home? Or do they hang out on set on off days? Do they talk to the director? Are they trying to be part of this movie? Or are they only about the times they show up for their own appearances?
Before we go down that rabbit hole, let me just make sure I'm understanding this and getting this correct. There is a slap scene in this And movie. Willem Dafoe's not in the slap scene, but he was helping her prepare for a scene where she slaps someone. Willem Dafoe's not some kind of pervy masochist here, right?
No, I didn't mean to read it with any slant like that. No, your first take was and it wasn't a real well-written article, and I'm not a very good reader apparently today, but you give me a shitty article and I'm going to just read it terribly. So sorry I did a bad job there, but no, your first impression is the one.
There's a slap. He was training her for it. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, I like Willem Dafoe too. And to read that, I was like, that's cool. That's cool to hear that story.
Yeah. The fact that this even is an article makes me think that your assessment of big stars shooting scenes, going to trailers, not interacting is probably more the norm. Otherwise, this would be a non-story.
It's kind of what I thought. But then I also thought it's like, every time somebody does good in Hollywood, does a nice thing, does it deserve a story? I don't know. But I just thought this was interesting because I'm always interested in what goes on sets because the few actors that I know, they will not tell you some of the stories that, they've experienced. And I beg and I'm like, come on, you got to give me some dirt. And they just won't. But that sets are just train wrecks. You put too many creative people together in a room and it's always going to be toxic. It's always going to be some kind of like, pissing contest or some bitchiness. So it's fun to hear a story like this.
Yeah. What's your favorite Willem Dafoe movie?
I love him as Green Goblin, but you ought to see him in The Lighthouse.
Yeah, you talked about The Lighthouse a few episodes back and how good it was. I always think of Boondock Saints and also Full Metal Jacket.
Wow. He's in so much shit that I forgot he was in that.
Yeah.
I just like that he looks like the Green Goblin and played the Green Goblin, and then they made him wear a mask. Like, the dude didn't even have to wear a mask.
That mask was terrible, too. I didn't care for that costume.
Yeah. I remember really being disappointed, but I think it was like technical limitations of special effects back then. They were probably like, I do believe they did try to make a rubber mask, like, because the Green Goblin in real life, in the comics real life, that is like just like a rubber mask.
Right.
So they tried to make one and it looked ridiculous. I guess they decided to go with the metal looking mask instead because, they just had to change everything. Remember like X-Men came out and they were wearing these biker leather looks, what back then they just didn't want to go too closely to what the main characters looked like in the comics because I guess they were afraid it wouldn't translate well.
Yeah.
Spider-Man being, an exclusion of that rule.
Sure. Yeah, well, good for you, Willem Dafoe.
Good for being a good guy in Hollywood.
Exactly. Help people along. You made it. You remembered fondly. I think we're always better known not for what we did, but who we helped.
Today, Willem Dafoe, we speak your name.
We speak your name.
Please don't fuck up now. Please don't make us get on next week and have to tell a story about how you did something really shitty. All right, everybody. I think we should wrap it up. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Again, please be sure to leave a review, like, and subscribe, and do all that stuff. We super appreciate it. Did you have a good time today, Scott?
I really did. And in addition to giving us reviews and all that stuff, just share the show with somebody. If you like it, chances are they're going to like it. More people listening, it makes us feel good. Like, lets us know people care as much as we care. So share it with somebody you like. Share it with somebody you don't like. Just share it. I don't care. But yeah, I had a good time. A really good time. I like watching the show grow and look forward to doing more.
It's all about good times in life. So check back next week and we'll give you some more fun.
Matt Damon.